after 7, and I'm Charlie Seelig, Town Administrator. I guess I'm sort of MC for tonight's forum and presentation about these proposed school repair projects. I appreciate you all coming out on a rainy night, and there's any number of other things you probably want to do, even if it's simply matching socks. But we do have a significant proposal to make to the town. We wanted to be a little bit more open about the presentation and getting questions asked and answers given tonight. Obviously, we can do more of the same in a few weeks at the town meeting, but this gives us a little more space, a little more informality than would have at a town meeting. The idea here is I'll talk for about maybe 5 to 10 minutes, very briefly go through our slide presentation, but the main reason for having us all together tonight is for people to be able to ask questions. You know, some of the questions and answers were given out on Facebook and other media. If you want to ask the same questions, by all means. Some people don't pay any attention to Facebook, which is perfectly fine by me. And some people may want to follow up on stuff that they've read there, which is great too. I do have a one sheet that gives a very brief synopsis of the project and the finances on the other side. I think there are copies up here, there are copies in the back. So if you don't have one, those are 2 places to get them. So we're proposing a significant series of renovations and repairs here at the elementary school. The last time that any work was done on a significant basis in the exterior was in 1993-1994 when the addition was built. And as with houses and other buildings, you wait long enough and things start falling apart little by little. It's been more than 20 years, obviously, since the addition was put in, and things have, as you might expect, fallen apart a little bit. Let's see if we can get this to work. Such as all the roof issues. In fact, we've got a bucket out in the lobby right now for one of our latest leaks, but these are all signs of leakage coming through the roof all over the elementary school. This is from the outside and shows some of the siding problems and some of the roof problems from, in essence, the outside of the building, why all these leaks are occurring. And it's all over the place. If it was just one area, you know, maybe we could do a patch. We've been patching all over the place for years now, and maybe, you know, if it was one place still, we could do a patch and everything would be fine. But we're talking about a roof that is now over 20 years old. We're talking about siding that's over 20 years old. Windows and doors, the youngest of them are 20 years old, but many of them are from the decades previous, from the first parts of the building that were built. And we got leaks going in even to the heating plant. So the procedure is, if a town or a school district has a major repair project that they would like to get funded, they can get state funding. The town and the school district applied for the funding a year ago. It's a long-term process. It's not simply, call them up and next week they're down with a check. We have to put in a lot of work. Joy Beckwith, who's the school superintendent, did yeoman's work in terms of putting together that proposal and bringing it in to the state. They approved the initial proposal. What that means is then we get assigned an architect, we get assigned a project manager to work with the town and the school district to put together a proposal with all the details and bring that back to the state. In fact, I think today was the day that the Massachusetts School Building Authority met to review all those proposals. I don't know if there's any smoke from the chimney yet, okay. But our expectation is, or certainly our hope is, that they will approve this proposal and approve funding for this proposal. They will fund some things and not others. They're very specific about that. So the roof, the windows, and the doors, they will provide funding for. For other elements, such as the siding, the fire suppression system, the alarm system, they won't. It's just, they don't have an infinite amount of money, and what they said is, here are our priorities, we're going to fund these types of projects, we're not funding these other ones. The other possibility, of course, is, and it's been mentioned on Facebook, they will also fund new school buildings. But what they'll look at is saying, is the present building viable? Can we do the repairs that are necessary to allow it to continue its life as a school building? Or is in fact the building so out of date, such a deplorable state, that trying to repair it doesn't make any sense? When someone asked about that on Facebook a couple of weeks ago, I did some top of off the head estimates. $300 per square foot, 100,000 square feet for the school, $30 million, unlikely to get any aid from MSBA because they're going to say this building is viable. So we would have to pull it up the full cost ourselves. However, I've got a little more education about this, and the actual cost for building a new school these days is $400 per square foot. So it ends up being a $40 million project funded by the town. So we'll get to the cost savings and such and what we're actually putting up. But you can see there's a big, big difference between the town fully funding a school building that's new for $40 million and what we need to do on our share to help fund this project. So they do, it's not just us. There are school districts and cities and towns across the state. It's a significant amount of money. There are lots of schools in need, but we're one of them at this point. And those are the numbers we're talking about for this project. I understand that the 7.95 is a big number. It will be the biggest project that we've done here in Halifax since the addition for the elementary school in 93-94. We've done other buildings and other infrastructure. We capped the landfill. We transformed the center school down the street into the new police station back in 2000. They weren't as big as this by any stretch. The prices that are there are what they are. I mean, the only variation really we're going to have are in two places. Well, one really is that the construction numbers are estimated as well as they can be. So and we'll get to a slide about that. But our hope is, if everything works out, the construction bids that come in will be lower than what we're estimating here, which then obviously is helpful to everybody. We're not going to have to cover the full 7.9. We will only cover a portion of it, a significant portion, a majority of it, but we will get school building assistance from the state to help fund this project. As I mentioned, talking about the cost estimates for the construction. When we go to the state and when we're estimating a budget, we aim for a mid-range for the estimates, with the belief that we will be able to come in lower. We'll see how things fall out when we actually go out to bid if this project's approved by the town. And if the numbers come in higher, I believe we have to go back to MSBA and get any, in essence, call it change order in essence. They have to be on board that the construction bids that came in are good construction bids. They're not inflated, that they are what they are. And we'll see how that works. You saw the larger construction number. These are the pieces of the puzzle for the construction work. The roofing, the windows and doors are elements that the state, as I mentioned, will provide a subsidy for. Simply because of how they divide things up, even though the siding is under the total MSBA project, we will not receive any funding for the siding. That will be on our part of the bill. Same thing with the fire suppression upgrade, same thing with the security system. So the total for the construction is a little under $7 million. Here's what we're doing with the roofing. We're putting in essence a new roof. In that, if you were talking, it's equivalent of your own house. You can put shingles up a few times, and then at some point, you got to take the whole thing down to the beams that everything was supporting the roof, and put in new coating, new shingles and such. That's the age of our roof. We've patched as much as we can. It's time to put in a completely new roof with better and upgraded materials than we had more than 20 years ago. They put in allowances so that if we find rot in the beams and such that are holding up the roof, then we'll be able to replace those materials. It won't be suddenly, because if you you have actually replaced the roof. That's the surprise element. Your contractor goes in, starts taking everything out, and they find rot and say, oh, it's another 5,000, it's another 10,000, whatever it is for your roof, because we didn't budget for rotting problems. They have. And then it's not literally just the new roof, it's the elements that make up the roof, the flashing, the edge metal, gutters, the downspouts. The water has to go someplace, and if you don't build those elements for the roof system, in essence, the roof by itself can't handle everything. The water has to go someplace, and it has to go where we want it to go. Windows and doors, we've got some from the 60s and 70s, we've got some from the 90s. None of that is as good as what we can put in today. They are falling apart in some places. We have to do some repairs around the siding and such, just for the frames around the windows, but everything's included in this. It's a lot of money. It's almost, I was very surprised to see how large that number is once we're talking about all the windows and doors. It's almost the equivalent of a roof, but you think about where air and everything else gets in those places, and you want a good energy efficient building, you need to start replacing windows and doors. Siding, I think if you go anywhere around the school, you can see what we've had with a siding problem. Again, for the most part, it's 20 years old or more. It needs to be replaced. Water gets in if it's rotting and such. It damages the school. We'll be putting in the same type of trim that we put in over at the town hall, in that it will look like wood. It won't be wood. And then with the fire suppression system, we're doing two things. There are portions of the school, the original portions, that do not have a fire suppression system at all. There are portions that do, but even in those areas are more than 20 years old now, the fire suppression system is falling apart. There are leaks all over the place. Right now, the leaks are being controlled by, in essence, the equivalent of very large rubber bands that go around the pipes to prevent the leak from leaking out. That's not a system that we want here at the elementary school. So go back to the grand total, that 7.9. That's how much money we'll get from the state. We'll have to pony up a majority of the money, 56% total, but it's not as much as a 7.9. And if we go and approve this at town meeting, and the debt exclusion is approved at the town election, then we will go out for a 20-year bond. The estimated interest will be 4.25%, and on the average median house, which is about $297,000, the additional taxes on that house the first year will be $147.25. The way we work it in Halifax is that we pay the same principal every year for the bond. That means that the interest that we pay each year declines. So the first year is $147.25. After that, it drops off year by year until I think that in the last year, the 20th year, we're spending, the taxes are only, instead of $147, about $82. And then at the end of 20 years, it drops off completely. That's the idea of a debt exclusion. The debt exclusion is there only for the life of the bond. It's not a situation that on the 21st year, I or anybody else says, oh, we now have all this money that we can spend on something else. No, we just end the bond. If we're going to do anything new, it has to come back to the voters. It has to be approved. It's an entirely new project. I think it's at slide 15, so we're through all 15. Who we have here tonight, obviously the Board of Selectmen's here. We have other members from the called the School Repair Project Committee. We have our project manager, John, and you. And then we have Steve Habib from Habib Associates, who is the architect for the project. The technical questions, they'll probably have more knowledge about stuff that's town-oriented, school-oriented, between the school administration and the town administration. We'll probably be able to come up with answers for your questions. If we don't know the answer, we'll say so. And we'll get something on the town website later this week and get it up on Facebook also, so we get that information out. Again, I do appreciate you all coming. We're here to answer questions, as many as you've got, and we've got a microphone right there for people to ask questions, so that, because we want all this to be on camera, so because it will be on Area 58 either later this week or early next week for broadcast to get all this information out. So thank you. So I guess if somebody has a question, if they want to just raise a hand, go up to the microphone. We're more informal than town meeting. So, for instance, if you have a question about the security system, we have the fire and police chiefs here, questions about the school, maintenance, and such, we've got school administration, so go right ahead.
Good evening. My name is Alexander Mead. I had a couple quick questions on the MSBA reimbursement aspect of the project. And I don't think it really matters the way the numbers are working out, but I thought, I was at a school committee meeting last week or 2 weeks ago, is the town responsible for 56%, or is it the 56% coming back from MSBA?
It's both, because we had a weird coincidence. Of the pieces of the project that the state is helping fund,
Yep.
they're picking up 56% of that cost. So for the roof, the windows, and the door, they're paying 56 cents on the dollar.
Okay.
But coincidentally, for the total project, it ends up that they're going to be paying 44 cents and we're picking 56. It worked out that way just with the arithmetic.
Okay.
So once you add in everything else, the siding, the fire suppression system, and the security system.
That's just the way the balance.
Yeah, they end up paying 44%, we end up paying 56%.
Okay. My next question was in regards to the roof project. Of the 2.8 million, I think it was roughly, Charlie mentioned that it's coming down to beams for inspection for structural repair, which they include an allowance for. So that includes all new sheathing on the roof, under the roof as well?
Well, it includes removal of the existing roof insulation.
Yep.
And there's a contingency in the estimate to include replacement of deteriorated perlite decking.
Okay.
That's on the low slope roof.
Okay, so the sheathing is just going to be done as required?
The sheathing will only be done if necessary.
Okay.
And it will be a vented insulation system on the slope roofs. And it'll be a tapered insulation system on the low slope roof.
What is the thickness of the insulation?
The thickness of the insulation?
I
believe it's an
R28.
R28. It's going to vary because it will be a tapered.
Right, it's tapered. No, I understand. Yeah. And my last question, which I'm probably jumping around a little bit, but back to the MSBA part of it, was the $50,000 for the security upgrades. We get a little more just in-depth description on that. I had heard like 33,000 kicked around. It was security. No, it's alarm. No, it's cameras.
Because I think we're still figuring that out.
Okay.
I think we need to, we'll work with the police department, we'll work with the school administration. We, at the very least, need to put in a camera system. Right now, I believe, Troy, 5 out of the 6 of the other schools, we're the only one here that doesn't have a camera system in place, as opposed to the other elementary schools and the middle and senior high school. That, I think, was the mainstay of the proposal. Well, if there are other things that we should be doing that can be done within the budget, we'll push to get those done also.
Okay, and then I would,
Troy,
hopefully by the time the vote and town meeting comes around, that would be a little less vague.
We did a tour, Chief Broderick, Mr. Beaudry and I did a tour on Monday. We could have picked a better weather day, by the way. It was miserable. But we did a tour of the building, both the inside and the outside of the building. As Charlie mentioned, this is the only building within the Silver Lake District, including Halifax, Kingston, and Plimpton, that doesn't have any sort of security cameras at all. I wish I could say that that wasn't a priority anymore, but the world just isn't the way it used to be.
Sure.
And the safety and security of our students is really a primary concern. So we did a tour of the building. There's many levels of cameras. We're trying to work within a building. The $33,000 you heard was the amount we spent in Dennett Elementary School, which is in Plimpton. It's the footprint of Dennett isn't as big as Halifax.
Okay.
So, when we did a tour with the chief, we realized that, to try to cover some of the outside areas, the parking areas, the fields, the inside, it's going to be a larger number.
Okay.
Actually, our tech director was sending it in, and we don't have an official quote, but somewhere within that number. I don't know if the chief wants to add anything or not.
No, I think it's too preliminary at this point. We just, again, we just did the walkthrough Monday, so it's going to take a little while to put everything together so we really know what's going to happen.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep. Another question I have, and I'm sorry, I don't mean to hog the mic, was at that school committee meeting, I thought it was pretty clear that we had already been approved. So what is, I guess, and I'm not familiar with the process.
So John could probably explain it. We basically are, but
Okay.
there's one last check mark.
Oh, okay.
Right, so basically, excuse me, the way the process happens is you're invited into the accelerated repair program. The town got notified of that. They said, here are your consultants, and we go and you start the study, because all you've sent them so far is a statement of interest that says, hey, we have window and roof problems, and now we need to quantify it. So what Steve and his firm did is went and took an initial look, got the cost estimator to come in, generated these numbers. The non-MSBA things, MSBA doesn't want to hear about
No,
those,
I
but
get it.
we're including them because it's the same town meeting. At that point, we send them basically the schematic design package, which is what he's planning for roofs and windows, windows and doors, what he's planning for the roof and the siding, because they allowed it in even though they're not going to pay for any of it, because they realized it would be silly to do the window and and then rip out what you did later to, put new siding in. So it made sense to do it all together. We sent them that, we sent them these numbers. It's just part of the process.
Okay.
The next approval, we would have heard from them if they had an issue with anything that was in the package.
Okay.
In fact, myself, Steve, and Charlie had a call with them just over a week ago where we ran through these numbers. Any questions, comments, concerns, both sides? No. And in our experience, this is probably our 6th or 7th accelerated repair town we've worked with, probably 10th or 11th project. Once you get to that point, you're good.
Okay.
We expect, we had a board meeting today at the MSBA. We're hopeful that, we got the rubber stamp today.
Okay. And then lastly, Charlie, would it be possible just to roll back to the fire suppression slide? I couldn't read what the red shaded area was.
It's actually frightening.
I'm sorry?
It's a little frightening, actually.
Yes, I can't read what the,
So the red shade, I think, if I'm correct, is areas where we have the fire suppression system now, but it's leaking. The areas that are not in red have nothing. Am I correct?
Yes.
is it a wet system or a dry system?
It's a dry system currently, but it was designed as a wet system.
And
But
inadequate
somewhere
insulation.
along the way, they switched it to a dry. I don't quite understand why. I think they were
Okay.
concerned about freezing. It was before my time. I've been here 11 years. But the pitch isn't correct for a dry system, nor is the material. So we have a dry system, but it isn't
It's,
the best.
okay.
But it's only in the areas that are red. Where it's white, there's literally nothing.
Okay, well, those are all my questions. Thank you, everybody, for working on this.
Hi, Mel Conroy, 7 Birch Road.
Mel, you need to get closer to the mic.
Yes, sir. My big question is, what is the life expectancy of this project? I noticed we're using, or at least in the bid that you put out there, cement board, AZEK, trim, et cetera, that they're very low-maintenance products. What's specifically, the roofing shingles, what kind of grade are you looking at on the roofing shingles? We expected a 20, 30, or 50-year shingle, and are we looking at doing this project again in another 20 to 30 years?
Well, I think with any building, you will have to do it again if you're going to keep it. But we would be specifying a 30-year roof shingle, and there'll be warranties, and it will be a quality job.
Outside of that, specifically the siding, I know you spec'd for cement board. Has vinyl been discussed at all as a possible alternative at a lower cost?
We'll be reviewing that in more depth, but our experience has been that vinyl, particularly where you are at a school, and if you think about vinyl and what would happen when the kids are playing ball outside and hit the vinyl, it can easily be damaged.
It can easily be repaired, though.
It can be repaired, yes, but from a maintenance perspective, we were proposing a more durable material than vinyl.
Perhaps you could speak to the cost differential between cement board and vinyl?
The cement board is more costly. I don't have the numbers right now.
Is it possible that, should we move forward with the project, that vinyl be included as a possible alternative when we go to vote for it?
Well, I think that's something that the town and the committee would want to make that decision. It's not, it's not incumbent on me to determine and to dictate how you want to treat your buildings and what you want to use for materials. I can only give you, our professional judgment and recommendations and the pros and cons and costs of the different alternative materials that you can use. So I think that's really something that the committee would be weighing and making a determination on.
Thank you.
I was just going to add a little bit. One of the issues with vinyl is it is not actually a waterproof product by any means. Water is always infiltrating behind it. It allows for more possibilities of problems down the road. And even on the few sections of the building that we've already put vinyl on, you can see where it's been busted up considerably, and it's been done a couple of times over the last 10 or 15 years since we did it. So, yeah, we can certainly look at the cost differential, but I myself personally, we're not going to do this every couple of years. So I personally would like to see the most durable product we can afford to put on the building.
I apologize, I was a little late, so I don't know if you discussed this already. For the people who want to push the project off, when do we have to start worrying about mold? If we already have leaking already, when does it get to that point? I know it's a guess.
They're always right.
What to stop worrying about, Mary? I think you're at that stage.
Yeah. Wait, what, I'm sorry?
I think you're at the stage where you should be concerned about mold, because the roof's been leaking, you have water infiltration. The maintenance group has done a good job keeping up, but if you don't do something, it will continue to deteriorate and become worse.
I think that's very important, air quality, so I think that's very important for the push. Thank you very much.
Hi, Cheryl Sullivan, 496 Thompson Street. What's the timing of this project, assuming that we get approval by the MSBA and that we approve the debt exclusion? Are you expecting to start this summer? What's that?
The way we're looking at it from the MSBA, roof, windows, doors, siding, roof would be this summer. Windows, the lead time for windows is too long. It's 12 to 18 weeks. So even if we got approval at town meeting, Steve needs a month to design it or so, we need a month to put it on the street. It's impossible to have windows in time for this summer. So we would look at windows this summer, we would look at, roof this summer, windows, doors, siding next summer. It would allow us to put it out to bid. It would be let as two contracts, but we would let the window, door, siding contract like in the fall, so that you would have the time, probably late fall, shop drawing submittals go through, windows are approved, manufactured, and sitting on site in a trailer somewhere, so that June 23rd of next year, they start coming out, so that it could achieve it in next summer. As far as the sprinkler system, obviously I think the security system would be immediate. Sprinkler
It could be done.
could possibly be done this summer, but again, that's something that impacts a lot of spaces where there's a lot of program. So if we can't get it done this summer, maybe you do the stuff you can and hide it, things that are not out there in the open, and try to phase it a little bit. But again, we're really, if you look at the scheme of a design, 0 to 100%, 100% being when we're putting it on the street, we're really at 15%, for a lot of, and some of these things even a little less. And until we get the okay from town meeting, then the real work starts with getting that design from 15 to 100 and answering a lot of these other questions and concerns about the details.
Well, that was actually another question that I had, is what kind of work has been done so far to achieve the estimate that you arrived at? Like, as far as design-wise, because you have money on here to do schematic design, so how accurate can the estimates be for the work?
So the schematic, so basically what MSBA has you do is, and you already approved that schematic design money at a prior town meeting to do the study. The study has been done, Steve's group did it, so actually came up with, we have to submit that schematic design, so it's probably, that's, feel free to come up and look
Submission
at
to the
it.
MSBA.
This is what went to the MSBA. Plans, an outline spec, kind of a listing of what Steve's group found, which leads you to your assumptions of what you need to do and replace, and then using market numbers, to try to, I don't know if you're here for that part, the estimates that are done for the middle of the pack.
Right.
So if there were 10 folks bidding, we're shooting for bids 5 and 6, because it does us no good to give you the absolute possible best case as a spike in PVC prices for roofs, and we blow the bid by 50 grand. If we go over the MSBA amount, we have to stop. We'll lose the window for the summer and go back. You can't just, you need to come in underneath on bid day for the MSBA portion of the work.
Or you could use some of the contingency if you needed to.
They really don't like that. They keep, contingency isn't for a blown bid. Contingency is for,
Construction and
whoa, we
foresees.
found some really bad, we're doing the siding part of the project, some of these really green areas, you take that down, maybe you've got some really punky plywood. Those are the kind of things that you save the contingency for, stuff outside of a bid overage. Our goal is on bid day is for you to be under, and you actually get bid savings.
I know you said that it's expected that the MSBA will sort of rubber stamp this project, it's good to go, but what if that isn't the case? When do you expect to really know from them? Because I know sometimes these boards...
I think the official board meeting was today.
So they'll issue results like in the next couple of weeks?
Oh, absolutely. They'll
Decision?
notify
Okay.
the superintendent.
Because I would just hate to plan a special election and, the
Oh, no,
debt
no,
exclusion, all that, I know there's costs that the town incurs
Oh, no,
to do that.
we'll have the okay that the board, MSBA Board of Directors has approved Halifax's project in an amount of X dollars with a maximum possible reimbursement of Y dollars. And that's, in fact, when you vote, you're voting for that number. I think we talked about this being 2 votes.
Yes.
It'll have to be 2 votes. There'll be a vote associated with the MSBA portion of the project, because the MSBA has very specific vote language. They want to make sure, they give you the language to put on your warrant, word for word, X amount. So you see that they are paying 50-something%, but they want you to approve the entire amount and borrow the entire amount. So that, in the event that a reimbursement gets held up or something like that, which shouldn't happen, you have the money to do the project and not hold it up yourself.
Right. So are you saying that we're going to borrow the whole amount of the project, the 7.9, and then we get reimbursed by the state and we pay down that debt?
Yes. I don't know if this mic, I guess this mic's working. So what happens is what we issue is a bond anticipation note for the full amount. It's not the permanent bond. So for the 7.9, we start paying the bills. MSBA starts sending us checks for reimbursement of portions of those bills. At the end of the project, all we have left that we owe in terms of having to go bond is our portion of $4 million some odd thousand dollars. That's the actual bond we'll go out for. So because MSBA in essence will pay for the other portion of it. So the PAN will be for the full amount, the bond will be for the portion that we're paying.
And so are we reimbursed monthly, quarterly?
Yeah, the MSBA reimbursement system, it's called ProPay. Basically, as soon as you pay a bill, you're allowed to submit into their system. It's electronic, once every 30 days. Basically, you submit it. That's a lot of our work is we set up the template budget with them. Everything gets coded to a particular line item, so it gets submitted, and then you get your check back usually within 3 weeks or so, and then we're submitting the next one. So it's, you know, in my opinion, you submit for reimbursement as often as you can, because it keeps your cash flow good. And Steve brought up a good point. The reason why you have to borrow the whole thing is because you're not allowed to sign a contract with anybody if you don't have the funds. So you've secured the funds, you might not have all the cash in the bank, but you've got authorization to borrow it. You know, how you handle your cash flow is a different story. But the state wants to see that if the price was, you know, $6 million of construction costs, you borrowed $6 million worth of construction costs.
So they're going to reimburse 44% of whatever the construction costs end up being. So if we come in under, then they're going to reimburse 44% of whatever. So say everything at the end of the day only costs $7 million.
Yeah,
No.
so it's not 44, it's based on the numbers you see there today, it's 44%. But for instance, let's say we save $1. They're going to be 44, it'll be that much less.
Yeah,
than that.
let's put it down to let's use $1 million number, okay? $1 million of MSBA approved work, they're going to pay 56%. So 560 is their share, 440 is your share. On bid day, you get the low bid is $800,000. Right off the bat, the max they're ever going to pay is 56% of $800,000. They take away that 56% of the $200,000 right away. That's why when we talk about your maximum grant that's shown there, that number will only ever get smaller. So the best Halifax will ever do is that red number on the last slide. That's the number that's on the MSBA forms that we there you go. So your maximum potential grant from the MSBA is 3472. If you get bid savings, that's great, but that's going to drop that number the same way.
So what
Right,
does
so your
the town
number's
do
gonna
if
drop
they put 7.9 million? So we've taken out a loan for 7.9 million, but we may only have to pay 7.7 because we had 200,000 in savings on the project.
Well, we're not going to go and get the loan before we go out to bid and get the bids. The ban will reflect what we actually need to spend. And probably thinking about this in terms of the timing, there won't be, if we're doing the project in 2 phases, then we'll probably do a first ban for the roof project and whatever else we're doing this summer. A second ban for the remaining portions of the project, let's say the side, the windows and doors, etc. And we'll time those things. And then at the end, in essence, we'll combine whatever funding that we had to come up with into one bond, you know, for the $4 million or, you know, 477,000 or whatever less, because the bids came in less. So we won't have to go out and get the ban for the full amount and pay interest on the full amount immediately. We'll time it appropriately based on when we actually have to spend money.
And the turnaround's quick on that, because if you're getting bids, you know, and you want to start the work, contractors need contracts, and we can't sign contracts without the money.
Well, if we're I'll take it in a couple of pieces. I understand what you're saying in terms of, but we can sign contracts with, the money's been appropriated at town meeting. The cash won't be in the bank account, but we can still sign a contract because town meeting has authorized spending the money. In terms of timing, what we're doing, of course, is having a town meeting in March, if it's approved, and then the election also. The actual construction work, I mean, the pieces, the design work and such, and the going out to bid and getting construction documents, that's going to happen this spring. The construction work won't happen until starting in late June, so that in terms of sending a check to Acme Construction, we'll have plenty of time between March and June to get a ban together. It's not a matter of days, but it's certainly a matter of weeks, but it won't be a matter of 5 or 6 months to do it.
Right, okay. I was also curious, what was the warranty or the lifetime on the current roof, on the existing roof? Because it was done, you said 20, just over 20
Well,
years ago.
93, 94, I do not know offhand what it was. I was living a different existence at the time.
So we don't know if the warranty is still good on the existing roof?
I honestly don't know. I would have to talk to the building committee and see what records they have from that date. And my guess, this is me saying this, and it's all the time, my guess is it won't, if there was a guarantee, it was probably 20 years. We're past that 20 years,
And-
if there was a guarantee.
And typically, the warranties you're getting are on the materials. Workmanship is usually a year.
Okay.
So what will happen is if you have a claim for a roofing warranty, you'll get rolls of roofing dropped off out front and they say, good luck. It's not great, but it's
Yeah.
at least something.
Right.
But that's, unfortunately, that's the best that the industry will do.
Right.
Rubber roof, 20 to 25 we've seen. Shingles, as Steve mentioned, 30 is pretty standard nowadays. When you start getting over 30, you're really paying a premium. And the MSBA is not into paying for premiums for those kind of things. A roof is a 30-year useful life for asphalt. And the reality is your systems here, your roof, your siding, your windows, they're all past their useful life at this
Yeah,
point.
no, I agree. I think 30 is reasonable. I was just curious if we were still under warranty on the roof we had. If we did a 30-year roof to start with, like, why are we paying to do another whole one over?
When it was done, they weren't doing 30s
Okay.
back then. And it's really only, again, in the material itself. So if it's leaking, you know, what caused the leak? Did someone step with it, someone puncture it, doing other work? I mean, there's all sorts of, yeah, they prorate it.
Oh, it's, I know, yeah.
Yeah,
All right, well, thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
thank you.
Charlie, would you go back to the slide that has the breakdown of everything, please?
Sure, so the construction or the ones with the schematic design and such, or which one would you like?
I think the construction one. Yeah, that one. Thank you.
Jonathan Seelig, Stony Hill Road. I don't know if I'm putting the cart before the horse here, but I didn't know if the building committee kind of thought about the possibility of using any sort of solar on the roof. And I don't know if maybe Joy can talk to this about other buildings in the school department to offset costs. And again, I know that's not where we're at right now, but just something to consider and make sure that we don't eliminate any possibility of solar, what we're doing now.
Sure. Right, I'm going to let him talk a little bit about the construction, and then I'll take it from there.
We did an analysis on the existing roof to look at the ability to add solar on the roof. And if I'm not mistaken, it was not adequate.
Yeah. No, I know some buildings, depends on their pitch and what direction they're facing. I just didn't know if that was investigated.
Well, and the other thing, and we did talk about it at a couple of the building committee meetings. Remember 2 winters ago, where we had the snowstorm, and, sorry, thank you. I can't speak loud enough. No. And I know it was here and even more so at Silver Lake, the extreme measures they had to take to get the snow off the roofs. Forget about your normal leakage. That everybody was concerned here and elsewhere. I think East Bridgewater, there was a major financial snafu because they started spending money they didn't have to get the work done over there, for instance. But it was done for good reasons. They didn't want the roofs to collapse. That's one of the reasons why, when we were looking at solar as a possibility, because everybody's thinking about that, we said, if we have another one of those winters, and we need to get snow off the roof, and we've got solar up there, it's going to be 10 times as difficult doing that work. As much as we know that solar would be helpful in terms of generating energy and maybe lessening the energy costs of the school or elsewhere, they're going to come and try tar and feather me the day that they actually have to go out there and remove the snow because we thought, hey, what a neat idea, let's do this, and not thinking about snow removal. I know, a couple of years ago was an extreme case, but even in '96 when I came here, we had a January which was basically the same type of thing, 3 or 4 snowstorms in a row. So during the lifetime of the roof, 2 or 3 of these years, maybe, and each time they're going to curse us for going up there and doing that, which might save money overall, but it's going to be a major burden for anybody actually maintaining the roof long term.
Thank you.
Pat Michaels from Elm Street. I guess my question is, how long, if let's say we don't, if it goes to vote, it doesn't pass, how long is the process to reapply for that MBSA loan? Like, would we be able to do it again next year, or are we looking at a 2 or 3 year time period?
Well,
Who's gonna quit?
and John may have a better answer about this than I do. We're in a weird boat. You were just talking about next year. Right now is the time when the proposals went in for the following year.
February 17th.
So what we would be talking about is February of 18 to send in a new proposal. It doesn't go through the cycle for a number of months because we didn't get approval until fall. Okay, so fall of 18, if we would get the project approved at the same place in essence where we are now. We go through this process again, and then the spring of 19, let's say we'll have a similar town meeting, and this summer of 19 maybe get through. So we're talking 2 years of delay.
Okay, so at 2 years, I mean, obviously you put in here 5% per year for construction costs. Is that factoring in cost of inflation in there as well?
That's construction costs.
Okay, but
construction costs are going up faster than your normal CPI.
Yeah, we figure usually 5% a year. That doesn't mean that if the price of oil goes through the roof again, the price for your rubber roof doesn't go up and now it's 6%. Labor goes up every year because it's a public job. It's being done for municipality. Everyone makes prevailing wage. Those wages go up every year on a set schedule, depending on which trade they are. Sometimes it's April, sometimes it's September. Continue to go up. So you can be guaranteed that it will cost more just for the work. The piece that can't be quantified is if there's more infiltration and what damage that does to the infrastructure inside.
Right.
So, where now you might be looking at a $200,000 allowance for what's underneath the roof. If 2 years from now, you get a new consultant who comes in and looks, and maybe telling you carry 400 on top of your roof that's now 10% more. So it's not doom and gloom, it's just the reality of labor materials always go up. And in a case where you've got an envelope that's not fully sealed, the deterioration is going to continue.
And can you, I guess, in terms of the bond, so it's a 20-year fixed income or fixed interest. So it's been a very low interest rate market across the board. It seems to be rising. So let's, any 2 years from now, let's say interest rates are 1% higher. So what would 1% on what would then be called, $8 million, $9 million in cost?
Well, back of the envelope, we're borrowing $4.4 million.
Right.
So your initial interest in the first year is $44,000 more. And what are we talking about, 200? It's going to be somewhat more, obviously. I cannot generate the numbers per household, what that's going to be, but it will be more.
But it could, would you say, could it push that number closer to the $200 a year per house?
Probably not somewhere more like 175, would be my guess, because you're talking about a third increase, but only 1%. So my guess is it might be nearer to 175, but it won't be nearer to 200.
Okay. And I guess my last question is, obviously, the construction that we do is only as good as the upkeep that we do on it. On some of those pictures, it's a little scary to kind of see what some of the siding and all that looks like up there. Now with, obviously you don't have paint on there, now you have water, has a better chance of getting in. So what type of upkeep is the town, is the building?
Well, I'm going to speak just 10 seconds and then I'll let Kane talk about that as the school principal. I think during the last 2 or 3 years, by having Matt Durkee chosen as the head of building maintenance here in the school, and having Kane know and agree that the maintenance of the school is extremely important. It's not just an add-on that he doesn't have to worry about. He works with Matt a lot. The atmosphere, the attitude of maintaining the school has changed dramatically in the last few years. And that's me saying it from across the street and talking with Kane and talking with Matt. Obviously, personnel change. You know, Kane will not necessarily be here forever, Matt will not be here forever. My hope is that between the two of them and the central school administration, because they're worried, I see what, you know, they've become much more tuned to what's happening at Silver Lake in terms of maintenance and capital planning, that they are not going to allow the deterioration that's happened over the 20 years to occur again. I can't promise it, what I've seen is that shouldn't happen again.
Well, I mean, I guess, and maybe I'm looking at it, like, I don't see it, you know, I don't expect you up on the roof painting the thing. To me, that seems like, you know, it would be the town maintenance that would be doing that. So, it's a school.
No,
Okay.
I think what I could say to it is that just in the short time that I've been here, and Matt's been here, and Mr. DeSantis has been here, we've taken pride in the building, and we have a sense of ownership. I mean, just we did have a leak the other day in one of the classrooms, and Mr. DeSantis was up on the roof, you know, trying to clear one of those spots. We have all hands in here, and we take pride in the building itself, and there's lots of areas that need to be taken care of, and we have a shared vision of fixing those things and not putting Band-Aids on. So I think that's really what it was. I mean, Brian and I, we were in another classroom over the break with the snow, and we were trying to figure out where the leak was coming from, and there was Matt on a ladder, and we just took pride and ownership over that. And I know it's been a number of years of neglect, and I think now we're just trying to.
I think you're also going to get a measure of the newer materials are more maintenance-free. You know, the cement board, it's solid color throughout. You know, you can paint it if you want to. You don't have to. You know, the PVC trim, it comes white. You know, that there's no maintenance there. As far as your windows, you know, you've got windows with some of the old glazing compound on there. These are now, there'll be double pane windows. There will be no glazing material per se. You know, you're not going to be worrying about those chunks flaking off and that kind of thing. So I think it's a combination of newer materials, more maintenance-free materials, along with a commitment from the school to keep up with what needs to be kept up with.
Thank you.
Alex, me again, back. I was looking at that slide, the fact that you paused on that one, Charlie. Is there an allowance for repairs in the siding, $2 million? I know you had mentioned that, you know, hey, there's mildew and mold on the siding, so when you rip it open, don't be surprised if there's funky wood back there. It's not spelled out there. But obviously a leaky roof, you're gonna expect to find rotten plywood.
Steve just indicated, yes, in the estimate there is an allowance similar to deal with some things underneath.
So roughly 9%-ish. So like a similar $200,000? I don't mean to put you on the spot.
His report.
No, that was my last question.
I know there is a contingency in there, we can go without it, but the exact amount, I believe.
Everything's an 8-point type on the report.
Is it,
Yeah, I need my glasses.
did you arrive, I mean, did you take like look at a sample size of other similar projects and say, okay, on average it's running?
Well, just to be clear, when Steve gets brought into this, it's a very aggressive time frame between.
Oh, no,
So when we go to part 2, there will be a little bit more testing, a little bit more peeling up some things so that we can greater define. Okay, and typically the way we'll do it is we'll carry a square foot allowance on there, so not just like this. So basically, okay, the contractor shall carry, 1,000 square feet of plywood removal and replacement. And when you find it, contractor, you need to let the owner's rep who's on site No, so you're going to measure it together and come to an agreement. At the end of the day, you only spend 500 square feet of that. 500 square feet comes off the contract price and we get it back at the end of the day of the credit. Similarly, if we go over, we've established a unit cost for anything that goes over so that we can control that to a degree.
It's about 140.
140,000.
Okay. I guess my more, I guess to be more clear. So that $200,000, nice round number. Is that a square footage amount like you said, so this roof is 50,000 square feet, we allow this. Does that take into account that the roof's been leaking for 5 years, so chances are we're gonna find more than the typical roof replacement in rotten wood?
How'd you go with this?
Yeah, do you understand my question?
Yeah, no, totally. No, it's a great point because we don't.
Because 200,000 is a great number.
You don't estimate 10% and find out that it's 50.
Right. Which is all well and good if you've accounted for that on a unit basis, but it's still.
Well, and that's a tough line between, if we came in and told you 50%, you'd all look at us crazy. What are you doing carrying $1 million?
Yep.
So that's, when you look at that breakdown, that's what that contingency below the line is. The MSBA expects, there is a contingency. Can you go back? No, other way. It's not on the construction page, it's on the 7-9 page. See that construction contingency of 310?
Yes.
Okay, that is, that doesn't include the 200,000 that's in the roof already.
Oh, it does not?
No, it does not. Okay, that 200,000 is in the 6209 up there.
Okay.
Okay, so the MSBA allows us to carry 5 to 10%. It's usually 5. 5 is what they approve. We think it should be a little more. So that 310 right there is our bucket of money which is why we ask you to borrow it, so that we have it. So if God forbid we find something that's more than 10% bad, we have the ability to fix it.
Okay.
Because we know we can't come back to you after town meeting and say, we need more money.
Now, is there
Otherwise, it becomes Charlie's nightmare.
Is that based on a fixed percentage, or is there going to be any issue with the fact that the town's going to put it out to 2 separate bids?
No, because we would carry 5% with each.
So
The reality is how much of that do you need to put on the $50,000 security? Not much. How much of that do you need to put on the fire suppression system? Probably a little bit.
Well, yeah, I would say that was
because
more
we have
of
some
the known.
some bad piping and stuff, but again, that system needs to be shaken out even more as the design is developed. But ultimately, most of that money is going to be for behind the siding and below the roof.
Okay. And then my last point or question, I guess, would be, since we are talking about this getting phased out into 2 separate, well, I guess 3 fiscals, 2 annual years, are there any restrictions on the MSBA money coming back in terms of project completion deadlines, once it's approved deadlines?
We've told them, the MSBA is well aware of the problem they have with window projects that get approved in this cycle.
Okay.
It's been years.
I mean, we can't be the only ones.
Yeah, no, because we're dealing with 4 schools in New Bedford right now where we're doing them second shift. And that's because we missed last summer, and they said we're not waiting till this summer, and frankly, this coming summer wouldn't have been enough time to do it, because the schools are so large. So as long as, we communicate with MSBA, and we have, that's one of the first questions, when's the work going to be done? We said roof this year, everything else next summer. So they're aware of it, there's no deadline.
Okay.
The job can stay open.
Yeah, I just
They love jobs to
jeopardize
close, but they're with you until, that last bill is sent in for them for reimbursement.
Okay, great, thank you.
So, there's been some talk about replacing the entire building, which many of us know is not really an option. But you had mentioned that there's a potential 30-year life on the roof. And so the rest of the building has been gone through to make sure the rest of the building will last the same as the roof, or?
No. No, this program the accelerated repair program is roofs, windows, and boilers.
No, I mean like on our side, on the town side. Have we made sure that the rest of the building will last pretty much the life of the roof? Do you understand what I'm saying?
If you protect the water infiltration, that's the biggest single element.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, there's small things that we need to replace.
There's always some interior stuff to do.
Yeah.
But the big thing is the envelope, the exterior envelope. If we prevent that from infiltrating water, that's what causes all the damage. I mean, structurally, I believe the building's in sound shape.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, and this will kind of verify it. If we find some wood on the outside that needs to replace in particular sidewall panels, that gets corrected. That's where your damage will come in if it does, and that's going to be identified, and it'll be easily identified with rotted panels. I mean, that's the tell, that's the give. I think structurally we're in good shape. It's just getting this envelope tight. That's the whole key.
And certainly from an interior portion, there are some things that we need to look at, like ventilation systems within each classroom are pretty old. And we do capital plans on the infrastructure of the computer systems and all that stuff, but, you know, as Tom said, the structure of the building should last 30 years, but we're still going to have the maintenance of the interior, and that comes with staff too. You know, a few years ago, the school had to cut some staff, and they cut some custodian staff, so that really contributes to some of the maintenance as well. So when you're looking at operational budgets and our maintenance lines for the town, you know, we are pretty proactive with the buildings, and we are, you know, we have a 5-year plan of different things within the buildings, and we do try to do it piece by piece, and so it's not a huge project. We could not have done that for this project, it's too big. But certainly we are aware of the maintenance of the other buildings as well.
Hi, if I may, again. I'm just curious about our size of our school and our growth projections, because if we're putting $8 million into a building, are we going to be fine in it in another 10 years? I know there's been, you know, a bunch of projects proposed in the town. Out in Franklin Street, a big project that was shot down. There's condos going up next to Halifax Meadows. Are we sure this building's going to be big enough for us for some time?
It's a great question. It's hard to say. I started 11 years ago, and when I started here, there were over 700 kids in the building, and we were fine. I mean, we weren't maxed out. Currently, we have 594-ish in the building, so I believe we are in good shape in terms of some of the developments you're talking about. But it's hard to say. Current projections, I think Barb's here, for kindergarten is a small class coming up. I think it's like in the 70s. Currently we have 95. You know, our class sizes have been around that mark. We haven't had a class over 100.
7 years.
Yes, 7 or 8 years. So I believe we're in good shape, but it's a great question.
Thank you. And speaking, you mentioned before about we submitted this project, we got approval from the SBA into this program. We need to approve the debt exclusion. If it doesn't get approved this spring, we don't have another shot to get it approved, like say in the fall or in the winter. We have to resubmit all over again? That doesn't seem to make sense. I've heard of other towns that were trying to do projects that they've gone 3 or 4 times for votes, and I don't think they've gone back to the MSBA every single time.
The way the MSBA is, you have to resubmit the entire bid unless there's something I don't know. It is a very lengthy, very involved process, very painful.
We were talking about unforeseen conditions and unknowns. Do we expect to encounter any hazmat materials, asbestos, or we were talking about the windows with the glazing and stuff. Could any of that be asbestos containing?
Yeah, that will be taken care of during the project, yes.
Okay.
Basically what we do is treat it as if it's there,
Okay.
and just get rid of it.
Yeah, I know generally, like, they can kind of tell just by the age of the buildings, they know where they were using asbestos and what the materials contain.
Yeah,
at the time that they were built.
they used asbestos or they used PCBs in the caulking. And that's typically where it's not the window itself, it's the caulking where the issues were. So the approach we take is get rid of it. Get rid of it as if it is. And it's just better that way.
And I also wanted to ask, has there been any study yet, if we're going to be doing new siding, new roofing, these airtight windows, having a tighter building, are we expecting to have any return on operating expenses as far as like heating and Has that been studied yet? I mean, it'd be nice if we could present those numbers to the town, so if we can show them like we're spending $8 million, but
project-
you might save $100,000
Yeah,
a year in heating.
we haven't looked at that, but I can tell you that the MSBA requires that any of the accelerated repair projects be designed to the level of the stretch code, which is Halifax stretch code?
Yes.
Okay, so you are, whether you're a stretch code community or not, that stretch code means 20% higher than the, what the building code calls for. So what you're getting is energy efficient solutions for the roof, for the windows. The R value of the roof is going to be more than what it probably is now. The windows, certainly for the if you have any single pane windows, more than what those are now. So you are getting, your envelope is getting tighter. As far as running the numbers on that, we have not done that.
I was just thinking it would be nice to present that if there is going to be a cost savings down the road of X number of dollars, just so people are aware that we're spending this money, but we're going to save money down the road too. Thanks again.
You're welcome.
I'm Tricia Thomas, Harvest Lane. I just have a question about the bond, the payback. Are you relying solely on residential tax increases to pay that back, or have you explored any other options to kind of offset that cost for the residents?
It'd be all based on a debt exclusion in the sense, and it's not, obviously, it's residential and commercial, even though we're only about 10% commercial, it's about 90% residential and open space. But yeah, it's surely on the debt exclusion. It's not, I'll give you an example. We just approved the meals tax last spring. The meals tax is not going to go to help pay for the bond. We're going to be using our intention is to use it, for instance, for capital projects. Pick another source of funding, whether it's the ambulance receipts or licenses and permits or our unrestricted local aid. All those numbers, if you dedicate all those things or any of those things towards this, then you need to cut back someplace else. You need a new source, which is what the debt exclusion is. So unless I'm not saying there aren't any new sources, but off the top of my head, there's nothing substantial that we could do that we could then say, fine, we will devote X amount of dollars from this new source towards helping pay for the debt exclusion, paying for the bond.
Thank you.
Can I just ask a quick question? So I have to go back to the mic. You mentioned about money from building permits. Is the town anticipating waiving the cost of the building permits for this project as a cost savings measure to the project itself?
Well,
Kind of doesn't make sense to borrow money to pay the permits to get to the town.
yeah, I mean, how to put this, the wash is this: we could charge ourselves the building permit, and then the money comes in and we've spent it. So if we don't, as you just pointed out, we don't have to borrow it at all. So you're right, it would make sense for us to do that, and we've done that in the past. Now, the exception for that is the way we have it set up. Our building inspector isn't fee-based in that we have a full-time building inspector. He has a salary. However number of building permits and such are issued, it doesn't matter. He gets paid the same amount. Our wiring and plumbing and gas inspectors are paid on a fee basis. So we'd have to look into how we pay them to come out and do that work. Now, a certain percentage of that money that we generate from fees goes to them, and a certain amount goes to town. What we might do is bank the other fees that we're getting, the 20% of the other fees we're getting, towards paying them for this particular project. I'm not sure how it works in other projects, but you're right. We would minimize as much as possible the building, wiring, plumbing, et cetera, fees that we generate, because in essence, we're costing ourselves that money. Is that about?
Jonathan Seelig, Stony River Road. Quick question for the consultant guys. how many projects similar in size and scope have you done? And of those projects, how many of those finish on budget? Is it rare that a town has to go back to another town meeting and say, guys, we need this much? Is that the exception? Is that the rule? What's the breakdown on that?
No, it's a great question. I will tell you in all of the, so we've done green repair, which was the first year of it. We've done accelerator repair every year since. We have not had a project go over the construction budget. So they've all come in under that number, and that's the goal. I mean, where you are looking at, really, I want to say simple systems. You know, the MSBA checks the numbers, makes sure that they're in line with what they've seen. They track every project as well to understand, okay, what's happening with the, square foot of roofing pricing, is it going up? And if they see an issue, they'll raise their hand when you send the number in. But again, Steve's got experience with it, we have experience with it, and we're using numbers that we've seen recently in other projects. So truly the goal is that 7 9 is your worst case scenario. You know, if on bid day, if you have to get anywhere close to that, that's disappointing. Does it happen occasionally? Yeah, but we haven't had one go over. We've had them come close, but again, that's when the economy tanked, when the price of sheetrock was through the roof, when oil was through the roof, and EPDM and those things made from petroleum, were a lot higher than we used to see. But right now we've been pretty flat, so we're, interest rates are starting to come up a little bit, but for the most part, these numbers, we're pretty comfortable with the numbers that we have out there in this estimate.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, Sharon Smith, Laurel Street. Can you go to the fire suppression, the picture showing what part of the school?
I may go back and forth here.
I think it was 14, towards the end. I think it would be very important to point out, because there's a lot of people who were chiming in on our local site about a fire suppression system, it's leaking, Band-Aid it. But clearly you can see that almost half the school is not covered. And I think that really needs to be vocalized a little bit more and pointed out. Right now, it looks like the first grade hallway, the second grade hallway, and is that the offices in the front? Like what parts are not covered right now?
The kitchen? The kitchen?
Above the stoves there are.
The answer system.
Yeah, I know. Right there.
So it's, the part that's mainly not sprinkled is the original building. So the white part that you see there in the front is the first grade wing, the blue hallway currently. On the opposite side is the second grade classrooms. And in the front there, that's where we are currently in the all-purpose room. That's the cafeteria, the kitchen. And so that's mainly all the spots here in the front. So it is, the kitchen does have a sprinkler system over the stove that we cook on, but in the main areas that it does not.
So a lot of parts in the school that are occupied daily by the students, by us here in a meeting tonight, that is a very scary detailed picture right there. And I just think it needs to be
In areas where the public uses.
yeah, in areas where the public uses, are not covered. So I really think that needs to be highlighted a little bit more, where people may think, oh, we don't need to fix that. That's a scary concern of mine.
I agree.
We'll get this PowerPoint presentation up on the town's website. I'll get a link to it on Halifax Locals also to contribute to the discussion. But we'll also have this available. Again, we're not going to, I hope, go through a major presentation at town meeting, but we'll go through this again as part of the town meeting and make sure that people understand what that slide is all about.
I actually have one other question about that. Is the office area and the lobby area, does that say non-scope?
That's the library.
Oh, that's the library, I'm sorry.
Is the library?
The public library? Yeah.
Yes,
That's the public library?
the end there, that's the public library.
Thank you.
The roof was for the library too, though?
No,
No.
that was done recently. Well, recently, 5 years ago.
That's actually a good question. So everything is just for the school and nothing to do with the library? No siding, no windows, no doors there?
Yeah, I mean, starting off just with the MSBA, they're not going to fund the library side of the building at all, just as they wouldn't fund the town hall at all. But we've done work at the library in pieces also at various times.
Hi, Lori Costa-Klein, South Street resident. I know there's been a lot of questions around, does it make sense to spend this much money on a roof? Is the life expectancy of the roof going to outrun the life expectancy of the school? I think those are all questions that taxpayers are interested in. My question is, if for some reason we don't make these improvements to the roof at this time, or we wait 2 years to make them when we're getting this grant again, are we at risk from the state? Like, are there sanctions that we as a town can be faced with because we're not providing a safe, public school building for our children? Like, are there risks that we could be facing as a town legally that haven't been discussed yet?
I'll try you.
I don't know the answer. It's a great question. I'm not aware of any particular sanctions. I can tell you if mold is found, there are definitely repercussions to that. And it is very expensive. And it is a frightening word. It's a 4-letter word, literally.
Thank you.
And basically, Tom, but I mean, basically that's the real point. I mean, we're going to continue, if we don't do anything, we will see a continued deterioration. So at the very least, you see more buckets, you see more patching. Under that roof, you'll see more rot. The job won't be less expensive, even forgetting about the 5% construction inflation. The job won't be less expensive 2 years from now. It will be more expensive 2 years from now. The worst scenario in my mind, besides the mold, is the equivalent of that dam in California. We're talking about a catastrophic failure. If, because we don't know how much rot has happened, and we get snowstorms or we get rainstorms, and we in essence get roof cave-in. Heaven forbid the kids are in that classroom when that happens. But let's assume that they are. We now are faced with an open sore, in essence. We've got to do something right then and right now. Nothing about MSBA. We're on our own nickel. We've got to fix that right then. We've got to find spaces for those kids in the programs. And we're now in an emergency setting. For the staff and for the children, it's just a situation I don't want to put them into, let alone the financial burden that we're going to have. So in a sense of what you're talking about is a safe space. Once we get an indication whether it's mold or whether we have a catastrophic failure, then we're obliged to do something. Obviously legally, but also, I don't want to say ethically or morally, but just in terms of our own responsibility, both on the school side and the town side, that we've got to do something right then and there. And it's not going to be it won't be cheap, let's put it that way. It'll be much more expensive because dealing with an emergency, the costs always go up. Tom may have more.
Well, you just hit the point I wanted to make, but while I have the mic, I also wanted to, and you alluded to it earlier, this is a roof system. It isn't just the roofing, because we're talking gutters, we're talking fascia, we're talking soffit. The gutters that are on the building now joint every 10 feet, I think it is that about right? Which is causing leaks everywhere. We're going to use an extruded product next time, correct? Yeah, just want to make sure that the architect's on board with me there. So when we're talking about value, it isn't just the roofing itself, it is more than that. It's considerably more, and we're using PVC board, which adds to the expense as well. But Charlie's point is the one I really wanted to make.
Mel Conroy, 7 Birch Road. while we're on the subject of mold, is there anything built into the construction costs other than the $310,000 contingency for mold remediation?
No, because, the reality is the way the MSBA looks at these projects, if you had mold, you shouldn't be waiting for them to fix it. They would say that, see that and say, no, if you had an issue that was an imminent danger, they look back at you and say, well, fix it,
If you
deal
have a
with it.
leaky roof, the chances are you have mold
You-
somewhere.
Possibly. But is there money in there for mold remediation? No. No.
Keeping it dry.
Yeah.
Yeah, keep it dry. The best way to deal with mold is get rid of the water, That stops the growth.
I didn't know if you were getting up for a question. We're happy to answer more questions. Just a couple reminders for logistics for this project. March 7th, right back here, 7:30, we'll have a special town meeting. There are 2 articles. The reason there are 2 articles about this is because MSBA has its rules, and if we want their money, we play by their rules. It's a lot of money, so we agree that we're going to play by their rules, and they wanted 2 articles separating out various aspects of the project. And there are other articles at this town meeting besides that, but obviously that's what we're here about tonight. The following Saturday, on March 11th, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. in the gym will be the special town election with 2 debt exclusions, 1 attached to each of the articles. The motions will be written for those articles that the appropriations made at that town meeting on the 7th are contingent upon approval at the town election. The questions at town meeting, because they're tied into a bond, will be a 2/3 vote. We need 2/3 majority rather than simple majority to approve those articles. At the town election on Saturday, March 11th, it's a simple majority to approve the debt exclusions. We don't have anything right now in between today and those 2 dates. Obviously, we'll take whatever time we have to at town meeting to answer questions then too. Our hope was to get as many people to have as much information about this project before the 7th. And, we're the school administration, myself, everybody else on the building committee, we're still available for questions in between these weeks. And as much as sometimes I don't like dealing with Facebook, the conversation there on this subject has been fairly civil, which I'm very happy about. And I'm going to continue where appropriate to answer people's questions and provide information. So the dialogue doesn't have to end tonight. We're still available in the interval between now and the 7th. But I'm happy to have anybody else ask any questions they want tonight.
Thank you all for coming.
Thank you very much.